Open your Bibles to Revelation chapter 6. This is the second message on the seven seals. Now, we sort of put together a timeline on when these seven seals would take place. And if you missed the first message on the seven seals, I encourage you, when it's available, if it's not already available, go to the archives, the Last Day Series archives, and listen to that message, because that's where I tied in Matthew 24 and put a timeline with Revelation chapter 6. Actually, I believe this is the third message in the Last Day Series and the seven seals. I'm not sure now. One week goes into another. Because I think the second message was about horses and the importance of horses as symbols. Now, horses, to review that quickly, are just symbols of warfare. In the Old Testament, that was the only use for horses. The result of the symbolic work of horses was to accomplish what God purposed among the nations with respect to Israel. Now, if you want to listen to that message, go back to the archives also. Tonight we're going to look at something else. But let's read the verses again, and I'll have you circle a few words. And I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, and I heard as it were the noise of thunder. One of the four beasts, scratch beasts out, because that's not really a good translation. What John is saying here, one of the four living things. He doesn't describe what this living thing is. But a better translation is one of the four living things saying, "Come and see." And I saw, and behold, a white horse. And he that sat on him had a bow, and a crown was given unto him, and he went forth conquering, and to conquer. Now, circle in verse 2 the word white. We already covered horse. Now let's look at the color white. That's not the only color. In verse 3 it says, and when he had opened the second seal, I heard the second beast say, "Come and see," or the second living thing. So write that in there underneath the word beast. And there went out another horse, red, and was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth, and they that should kill one another, and there was given unto him a great sword. Now, in verse 4, I want you to circle the word red. So in verse 2, we circle the word white. In verse 4, we're going to circle the word red. Let's continue reading. And when he had opened the third seal, I heard the third living thing say, "Come and see." And I beheld, and lo, a black horse, and he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand. Now, this verse, verse 5, we're going to circle the word black. And I heard a voice in the midst of the four beasts say, a measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny, and see thou hurt not the oil and wine. And when he opened the fourth seal, I heard the voice of the living thing, the fourth living thing, say, "Come and see." And I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and his name that sat on him was Death, and hell followed with him. And power was given unto them over the fourth part of the earth, to kill with the sword, and with hunger, and with death, and with the beasts of the earth. Now, we'll stop there. But in verse 8, we're going to circle the word, if you're reading the King James, pale. And we'll come back to that in a minute. Now in scriptures, and I've said this before, I think no scholar, no one argues that numbers are important. I'm not talking about the book of Numbers in the Old Testament, even though that's important too, but numbers in general are important in the Bible. Well, that's true. But colors are also important in the Bible. And here we have, in these verses, we have all horses, but different color horses. So let's take a look at the colors. You got to remember that too many prophecy teachers like to put a worldwide application to these passages. The prophecy center point is Israel. The prophecy center point is Jerusalem. And if you want to go outside of that, you need to understand where the lost tribes went and how they are affected also by this prophecy, because their relationship with their fellow brethren that now exists in our times in the nation of Israel, which Jerusalem should be their capital. And is their capital. The thing is, I want to point out to you that numbers are important, but also colors are important. You know, I've seen all the different interpretations of Joseph's many-colored coat that his father provided him because he was a favorite son. Now, there's different interpretations what kind of coat, and some say it didn't have many colors. I believe it was a colored coat. And I believe it was a colored coat that, and I'm not going to get into it now, that if you remember the spiritual warfare teaching, all the different colored stones, it had some type of relationship with those colored stones according to the sons which eventually became the tribes of Israel, Jacob. But that's another story. I'm not going to get into that right now. Now, the white horse, the red horse, the black horse, the pale horse, all these horses and all these colors ties into what Jesus prophesied in Matthew 24, which we already covered. Now, so let's take a look at some of these colors. White. Just write this down if you're taking notes. Before that, let me read you something. In apocalyptic literature, color plays an important role in conveying symbolic meanings. And I totally agree with that. For example, the colors blue, purple, and scarlet play prominent roles in the building of the wilderness tabernacle. In Numbers 15, the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and bid them that they make them fringes in the borders of their garments throughout their generations, and they put upon the fringe of the borders a ribband of blue. The woman that John sees in the wilderness, however, sits on a scarlet beast and only wears purple and scarlet. Revelation 17. While the color blue is noticeably absent. Here, purple and scarlet suggest the woman has become affluent through evil means and not by the blessing of the Lord. It means a lot more than that, but below is a list of all the colors mentioned in the Bible. And I'm not going to go through the whole list. If you're that interested, you can find this information about the symbolism of colors in the Bible on your own. But let's look at some of the colors. Let's start with black. What does black mean? You might want to write this down. Remember, in verse 5, we see the black horse. we see a black horse. Now, colors mean something. If it didn't, then John only had to say that he saw a horse. And this horse, and the rider on this horse, had a pair of balances. But that's not what John said. It was a horse, but a specific color of horse. And colors mean something. Now, black, it's one of the most commonly used colors in the Bible because it describes the color of the middle of the night. It also describes diseased skin, corpse faces, the darkening of the sun and the moon. It describes horses and so forth. But what does it symbolize? And write this down. The color black symbolizes, first, sin, death is another one, and famine. That's the most common descriptions of what the color black symbolizes. But there's more to it than that. It also should describe, and write this down, darkness, affliction, humiliation, mourning. All those. So what it's describing here in Revelation 6 is events that would be causing affliction and humiliation and mourning and darkness, death and famine. This particular horse, when it rides on a scene with its rider, is going to bring these characteristics with him in this description. Let's take a look at another description, because there's more horses. How about the red horse? Now, red is another one of those colors that is full of meaning. And of course, all of you know the first, and that is the color of blood. But it often symbolizes not just blood, but life. But there's a flip side to the color red, and you have to look at the context of the scriptures to know which application or which definition should be applied to that scripture or these scriptures. It symbolizes also bloodshed. Bloodshed and the carnage that would be experienced that's brought on by war or wars. So the color red not only symbolizes life and the color of blood, but also on the flip side of it symbolizes blood and violence. And the latter part of what I just described to you needs to be applied to the red horse. None of these characteristics of these horses are good. I'm going to tell you that right now. They're all awful. They're all destructive. Filled with darkness and death and sin and famine. You name it. Now, there's another color, and that is when we read in verse 7, I looked and behold a pale horse. Now, pale is a bad translation there. Chloros is the Greek, C-H-L-O-R-O-S. Chloros. In the Greek, it has multiple meanings also. In the Greek, the color green was most often associated with the meaning of growth. Growth. If you just want to stop there and put an application to the verse we just read, the pale horse, by the time we get to the green horse or the pale horse, the expansion of Islam is in full swing. But it also has another meaning, something that is sickly associated with death. In other words, a spiritual disease. It's the color today that's most associated with Islam. Some say it was Muhammad's favorite color. I don't know that for a fact or not, because that was just hearsay. So, when putting an application of what this color possibly means for this horse, I would define it as a spiritual disease that would be expanding rapidly across a vast area, spreading its spiritual poison, its anti-God message of a false god, the moon god, that's sick and will lead to death. I'm talking about spiritual things here. Now there's another horse, and of course it's the first one. And I saw, behold, in verse 2, a white horse, and he that sat on him had a bow, and I'm not going to get into that yet, but it's a white horse. Now white, in most cases, symbolizes conquest. It's that simple for the white. Conquest. And that's exactly what happens. Now, on the flip side of that, it also characterizes purity, righteousness, joy, light, and eventually a white horse, when Jesus comes back on a white horse in the future, symbolizes victory. But in this case, in Revelation chapter 2, this white horse and its rider that's sitting on him eventually would have its temporary victory in its quest to spread the message, the anti-Christ message, if properly understood, an anti-God message, especially that Jesus Christ was not the Son of God, amongst other things. But white also you find in the crescent moon quite often. Now, the thing about these colors, in the beginning, several hundred years, and all the way up to the 15th or 16th century, there was no special designs on the Islamic flags. And depending who was the leadership at the time, now Muhammad, for instance, he would just use a white plain flag or a black plain flag. Others that followed him would use a red flag. And then when you get to the latter period of the seventh beast, they would introduce a green flag. Isn't that ironic? And I'll get to that. All these different periods of the beginning stages after Muhammad and what he did, which he used a white and black flag. And these were all just solid color flags, not the kind of flags you see today or the last 100 years, actually, 150 years, which has words or designs on them, besides just being one color, solid color. But the beginning years, all the way up to the 16th century, you would see a white flag, black flag, red flag, or green flag. Solid colors. And depending what centuries leading up from, say, 630 AD all the way into the 1500s AD, different periods of time would fly these different color flags, all solid, black and white, green, red, but those four colors were dominant, especially when they went to battle or conquering or seizing. They would plant their solid color flag, whatever period it was, to make known to the world, this now belongs to the Prophet Muhammad and to Islam. I don't think that's a coincidence. I think that's something that needs to take notice. And if you look at it today, there's colors in present Islamic flags. Now, I think they have that ready. And if you do, put up the first one. Let's look at some of the colors of the Islamic nations' flags. If you have it ready, that I believe is Afghanistan. I want you to take a look at this flag. Of course, you see the wreath. It's in a moon-shaped type design. And it has words. But what's so unique about this flag, according to what I just covered? Well, you have the white, you have the red, you have the black, you have the green. Isn't that what I just read to you? And that's why maybe you can see now how important the symbolic meaning of these colors, because they're identifying people, nations, followers. In this case, the seventh and eighth beast. All four colors of the horses are in this flag. Now go to the next flag. I believe it's Iraq. Once again, what colors do you see in this flag of Iraq? You see the white, you see the red, you see the black, you see the green. Next flag. Now this is Jordan. What do you see once again? White, red, black, and green. Coincidence? I don't think so. But just in case you think it is, let's go to the next flag. That's Kuwait's flag. What do you see? The color white, the color red, the color black, the color green. Next flag. That's Syria. The color white, I'm going to sound like a broken record. The color red, the color black, the color green. Next flag. Go to the next flag if you can. It should be United Arab Emirates. Yeah, that's it. What's its colors? Repeat after me. Even though, oh, you went too far. That is Libya right there. Well, the previous flag had the same four colors. Now, this flag has the white, in this case the white. Now you went back again. Now go back to the other one. This is Libya. It has the white, crescent moon and star. It has the red. It has the black. It has the green. Next flag. White, red, black, green. Is there one more? I think there should be probably several more. Or is that the last one? No, there's another one. I think this is the Palestinian flag. This is the white. Oh, you see the white, you see the red, you see the black, you see the green. Move on. This is the Arab world. A map of, obviously you can see Saudi Arabia, green and white. You see Syria, you see Iraq, you see Egypt, you see Libya, Tunisia, you see Morocco, you see Sudan, you see Yemen, Oman, you see the Arab world. What's unique about that? What colors do you see? The white, the red, the black, and the green. Is that the last picture? If it is, just come back to me then. I think you get the point. Is it a coincidence? I don't think so. Now, I don't have time to go through all the flags, but I'm just going to read you. This is, that's not just the only colors throughout the history of time. Some of the older flags of the Arab nations have the same colors: the white, the red, the black, and the green. The four colors of the horses in the 7 seals, the first 4 seals. Now, some old flags, you might look this up on your own if you're interested in it, that has some of those same colors. I'm just going to list you a few. Flag of the Arab Federation. Now, these are old flags when these organizations and these nations that were part of these organizations existed. Flag of the Arab Federation had those 4 colors. Flag of the Arab Revolt had those 4 colors. Flag of the United Arab Republic had those 4 colors. Flag of the Arab Kingdom of Syria, before present Syria, had those 4 colors. Flag of the Yemen Arab Republic had the white, the red, the black, and the green. Flag of the Arab Democratic, that's funny, Republic. Same thing. Flag of Somaliland, that's just a few. Same colors. Now, you think they'd be a little more creative, all these nations in the Middle East and in Northern Africa, to come up with something besides just white, red, black, and green. Now you go further out, like Turkey and Iran, that changes. And there's a reason for that, but not tonight. The pan-Arab colors, listen to this closely. The pan-Arab colors. The pan-Arab colors are black, white, green, and red. You think that's a coincidence? Or do you think these colors are used for a reason? They're identification markers, how we can, now looking at the scriptures, can identify certain nations and see what colors they identify with, and how it identifies with the 7th and 8th beast. through the history of time since Muhammad. I mean, you got to be blind not to see that this is not a coincidence. This is right smack in your face information that shows you what Jesus prophesied in Matthew 24 is taking place. And that's why I encourage you to listen to that first message, because it sets a timeline. And if you, and I might be able to do this, not tonight, but in the next program or the one after, how these different Arab followers of Muhammad, after his death, chose certain banner flags and the colors they used to fly when they went on their conquest with a mission to make everyone serve Allah. The Pan-Arab colors are black, white, green, and red. Individually, each of the 4 Pan-Arab colors were intended to represent Arab dynasty or era. Many current flags are based on Arab revolt colors, such as the flags of Jordan, Kuwait, Palestine, Sahrawi Arab Democratic Party, and the United Arab Emirates, and formerly in the flag of the brief 6-month union of the Arab Federation of Iraq and Jordan. It may be noted that while Libya is an Arab country and has a flag with the same 4 colors, the colors have a different origin in the flag and are therefore not considered Pan-Arab colors, which is true. From the 1950s, more recent times, onwards, a subset of Pan-Arab colors, the Arab Liberation colors, came to prominence. These consist of a tricolor. Of red, white, and black bands with green, which is given less prominence but still there. The Arab Liberation colors were inspired by the use of the Arab Liberation flag in the Egyptian Revolution of 1952. They appear in the current flags of Egypt, Iraq, Sudan, Syria, and Yemen. I've already covered some of these. And forming the flags of rival states of North Yemen and South Yemen, and the short-lived Arab unions of the United Arab Republic and the Federation of Arab Republics. Now, as I said earlier, as I showed you those flags, the early period of Islam, all the way up to about the 1500s, you had certain groups of Muslims, leaders of certain groups that would fly their flag. And I told you, Muhammad would use white and he would use black, depending on the reason, which I'm not going to get into. Now, after Muhammad, the Umayyads predominantly used white. And then certain other groups would use red. And after that, green. Now, the Ottoman Empire would lean more towards the green. But the first period of the timeline, from the beginning of Islam and Muhammad all the way up to the Ottoman Empire, the 4 dominant color flags, solid cover flags, were white, red, black, and green. And remember I told you the center point of all this information, how it should be absorbed, is how it relates to the nation of Israel and to Jerusalem, and to an outer extent the lost tribes, Ephraim, so forth. That is literally one stick in God's eyes, either now or eventually. I think it's already in progress. And how the Islamic world relates to them. And you'll see, and you have seen, They consider us the great Satan and Israel the little Satan. They don't separate us. They want to destroy both, in their eyes, the little Satan and great Satan. Because they know if they can do that, in a very short time, they'll have the rest of the world bow down to them. I'm not all into this Russia's Gog and Magog theories, and you know that by my teachings in the past. I think Putin's doing more now to fight against Islamic push in this country than we are here. And I'm not no Putin fan. And I don't justify most of the things that he does. The one thing he does do is push and push hard against the Islamic revolution that's taken place, especially since the Arab Spring, and what has influenced the present day jihad that's taken place. Now, you might think this is all a coincidence. I don't. These colors mean something. And it's not a coincidence that all these colors are used as the four main colors in the Islamic theme. Do you think it's a coincidence? I don't. I think, once again, all you have to do look is history and see for yourself. In this case, just looking at the flags. The Islamic Empire has used in the last 1400 years. And it's white, red, black, and green. God once again hits the mark, hits the bullseye. It's not a coincidence. Now I want to hear from you. Play a song.